Kempy, thank you, mate.
No worries.
So for the guys who weren't on the chat, what we've done is Kempy and I have got back together after we had the group chat, just to tidy up some of the great advice that he gave us. So this is kind of like a take two, and it'll be a much more condensed version with just the good bits and cutting out all the bullshit that we were going on about with our catch-ups. So for those guys who don't know, Kempy and I worked together. I coached Kempy for about 12 years. In that time, he became, what have I got in my notes here? 2013 Asia Pacific 70.3 elite male champion, Australian long course champion, Ironman Melbourne. What, 8:14 for your first Ironman at Melbourne?
Well, second Ironman, but yeah, 8:14 in Melbourne, yeah, and got smashed.
Fast course, that one. Fast course. Might have even been short. Fast course, all on the freeway.
Fast and short with a tailwind.
Exactly. That's how I remember it too, standing on the sidelines. That's exactly how I remember it. But look, the thing that that we've got Kempy here for is that through his career, he went from being a mid-pack swimmer to a front-pack swimmer, leading out of the water in most of the races that you were in. And that transition in the professional ranks is super hard to do. So you were a collegiate runner, and pretty much a mid-pack swimmer. Like you were getting out second pack out of the water in 70.3s and Ironmans, yes?
Even third pack, honestly. So
yeah, right.
second pack on a good day, couldn't even contemplate front pack. Third pack on a bad day. But yeah, ITU level, I was definitely not a good swimmer.
So take me through, how were your race dynamics when we sort of started? I remember that sort of kind of standing there and seeing those first, 5 or 6 guys get out of the water, and then a minute to and you might be just hanging on to that pack that were like a minute to 90 seconds down. What were the dynamics of a race for you in that scenario?
But well, basically you're dictated to the entire race. You just have to react to whatever anyone else is, how they're determining or dictating the race to you, basically. It's a very, very different dynamic when you're at the front and in control. If you're racing from second pack back or further, you're just hoping that you get a break here or there that allows the front guys to come back to you so that you can actually get into the race. Otherwise, you're trying to do the best you can, but you're really racing for 5th or 6th at best if you're not in or around that front group. Especially kind of maybe late 2008, 2009 or early 10, 11, 12. The dynamic of half Ironman definitely changed, where early days there was 1 or 2 guys off the front and a strong bike runner could come through and do really well. But once a few ICU guys got involved and 70.3 as a distance became more professional, if you weren't in that front pack, you're really not racing for the win, or it was a rare occasion where you may be able to, if the race dynamics due to someone else's decision making played into your favor.
I remember distinctly when that dynamic changed, when the ITU guys started coming across and going, hang on a second, basically in our spare time in non-Olympic years, we can just come and do these 70.3s as training days and kind of make good money. And I remember those guys coming over and just basically getting out of the water, either doing backstroke or getting out of the water with a 1.5 minute lead and kind of going, what do we do now?
Yeah.
These guys weren't used to time trialing by themselves. They're like out in front going, well, I can run 70 minutes off the bike. So all I got to kind of do is stay upright and I'm going to kind of be okay.
Yeah, I mean, certainly to start with, their bike wasn't as strong as it is nowadays, but they learnt quickly. And you generally find that even if they come from ITU and they're good swimmers, they've generally learned how to bike ride because they're just thrown into the front of the race and they learn over time. And I mean, if they can run decent, they're just thinking like, this is great. But I think originally when 70.3 started, it was the Ironman guys stepped down, and nothing against those guys, they're amazing athletes, but the swimming level at Ironman pre-2010-ish was not amazing. And the guys that were that super swimmers were kind of left out alone to die, and then you never saw them after kind of halfway on the bike. But that certainly changed once there was a few more good swimmers. And yeah, it if you're not in that front group nowadays, you're really very lucky to get anywhere near a podium.
Yeah, yeah. So then transitioning back to you, so over the course of that career, it didn't take you I don't remember it taking that long a period of time for you to go from mid-pack to front pack. I mean, obviously, genetically speaking, you're going to
Day to
get
day felt
things.
long.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think, how did that transition happen? Refresh my memory with it a little bit and share with these guys how that transition from mid-pack to front pack happened for you.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, after a couple of years of that, living that frustration and that second and third pack life, we made a decision to work on my swim, and we sat down, planned things out. But one of the key things we did was, for 12 months, I had to swim 8 kilometers every Monday and Friday morning. So I'd swim 5:30 to 7 a.m. with a proper swim group with some of the more elite swimmers in Australia, generally the younger ones. They weren't certainly Olympic level that I was swimming with, but they were up and coming juniors that were trying to achieve that level. They would smash me, 15, 16-year-old girls, like charging down behind me in the lane.
It's terrifying, isn't it? It really shows that swimming isn't like a brute force sport, right? Like you got these skinny little adolescent girls swimming 110, free 100s and just tapping it out and tapping it out. It's crazy, right?
You think you're a decent athlete, and then you get in and swim with some early teenage girls, and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm not that good.
I remember watching that. Just these girls getting out, they're just skinny, rakey little things, and they're flogged you senseless for 6K.
And I was never going to be good enough to swim with those elite guys, so that was kind of who I was stuck with. But so that was kind of 5:30 to 7. I'd be certainly a little tired. By 7 o'clock, you guys came in for the tri group from 7 to 8. So I was in the water for 2.5 hours every Monday, Friday. We did that for 12 months, and there were days where I couldn't lift my arms, and it was very draining, and days where you question yourself. But in the scheme of my career, 12 months wasn't that long. And once I'd done that once, it kind of changed my ability to make that front pack. And what I found was that it's surprisingly the difference between making or leading or being in the second pack to hanging onto the back of the first pack was not that much different. And it really came into play kind of 250, 300 to 800 into the swim. You still had the initial sprinting, but you needed to be able to hold a really strong pace and recover until the 800 mark. And then once you're in that pack and the separation hadn't occurred, weirdly enough, I was like, okay, like I didn't feel like I would have to swim that hard anymore to stay with the front group. But when you're back in the second pack and trying to fight, like the entire swim is hard. So I think the fitness or the swim endurance I gained from doing those 12 months of 8K Monday, Friday allowed me to adapt from the 300 to the 800 mark. And it's only 5 or 6 minutes of the swim, but I guess the strength that you gain from doing 12 months of that really helped with being able to cope with that during the race.
Yeah, no, nice. That muscular endurance that comes from that, being able to develop that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like everyone can sprint off the start, but it's can you hang on?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, that's where it's all decided from 300, right? Yeah. Otherwise, you're lactic from then on.
Yeah.
What were
I felt that I experienced that for many years in prior to that. I'd just blow up if I tried to go with them.
And it just affects your entire race from there. You go lactic at 300 meters at, whatever it is. It just affects your entire race from that point onwards.
Yeah.
So take me through, for these guys, 2 or 3 of your hallmark swim sets that you just went, if I'm hitting this, it's money in the bank. I'm going great.
Yep. So I really had 2 key sessions kind of the last 5 to 6 years. One of them, the first one, so it was have a good warm up, do a couple of little sprints to get warm up, and then the main set was 15 times 100 on a pace that felt probably about 80% to you. So you want to try and time it so that after each 100, you're still in control. If someone was at the end of the pool, you could have a conversation. You're not completely out of breath, but you're swimming, I guess you would class it as strong. And you would set yourself a time repeat that was about 10 10-ish seconds rest. 15 is probably too much. 5 is too little. So you want to try and find something around 10 seconds, maybe 12. That's okay, but 15 would be too long. Once you've found that time repeat, so then you go 15 100s and then a 200 super easy recovery. Like you can either do 450s on a minute 15 or whatever. I swim 200 straight with some backstroke. Just take your time, recover. Part 2 would be 5 times 200, holding the same per 100 pace that you were in the hundreds and leaving on the same time cycle. So you would get a little bit more rest. I would go from 10 or 12 seconds to 20, 22, 23 seconds.
But
these are
200s now.
These are now 5 200s, yep.
Right.
And then this is it's going to start to get tough in this part of the session. It's numbers 3, 4, and 5. You're going to start to feel it. You're going to be breathing heavier when you get to the end to hold that per 100 pace. After the 5 200s, again, you have another 200 easy, however you did the first one. And then you would finish with 2 times 400. Again, same per 100 pace, same time cycle. So if you're getting 20 to 22 seconds rest for the 2 400s, you might be getting about 40 seconds rest. But trust me, if you're doing it right, you're going to need it.
Yeah, right. So we've got 15 and then 5 2, so that's 2.5, and then another 800 at that. Basically holding. You're essentially, so what, 3.3 at essentially 70.3 pace. So essentially 2K time trial pace, you're doing that 3.3. So the over distance work, in other words.
Yeah, it's like with the recovery, it's basically an Ironman swim with a little bit of like easy swimming in there. But if you judge it well and really find the right pace, the fitness that you're going to gain basically from the 2 400s at the end is incredible. Like if once you start to do the session right and you have the fitness to hold it, then you get in a race and like the back end of any swim, even an Ironman swim, you're going to feel really, really strong. And I mean, you can obviously with a warm up and a cool down after it, you're going to get easy 4.5K, but it's a big proportion of it is quality.
Yeah, well, 3.3K is a main set. That's a good main set in anyone's book.
Yeah. And then, so that was my first one. And then the second set was boringly 3 1500s. And I would do them long course. So you would do the first one at controlled pace, something that, again, once you finished it, you weren't out of breath and you could maybe bilateral breathe comfortably through the swim if you had to do that the entire swim. And then take your time, note your time. The second one, you'd probably have, I don't know, 45 seconds to a minute rest. Like a minute rest would be enough on there. You'd have a drink, stretch, whatever. Second one, you want to go a minute quicker. So important to know how to pace properly once you're doing this set. And if you have the ability to read the clock when you're swimming, it definitely helps because you can work out pretty quickly if you're on pace or whatever. If you're just kind of guessing through the set, probably not going to be right. And then the third one, pardon me, have the same rest after the second one. The third one was paddles and pool buoy. And then you want to go a minute quicker than the second one, so 2 minutes quicker than the first. And that's, again, where the real quality and the strength will come in. I found once I could hit those times and descend them by the 2 minutes on the last one, my swim was really on point. And I mean, obviously that's a long set, 4.5K without warm up or cool down. So you're well over 5 with all of it included. But those are the 2 key sets for me.
I like it. I like that. I like a long course set like that. And I mean, what I get a lot of the guys to do now is you've got the metronome in there. And for that third set, particularly with the paddles where you're starting to drop off, you're already 3K in your main set, you put that metronome on where it's just got that nice steady beep. And you got to hold that rhythm and that tempo on that 1500s. That's actually quite a good set.
Absolutely. And the first session is really challenging, but this one is also very mentally challenging. The second and third, to start 3 1500s, you kind of already like, oh, wow, this is going to be long.
Totally.
And by the time you get to the third one and you push off and you've got another 30 laps ahead of you, like it is a mental challenge to stick with it. But again, if you can do them and do them well, you'll find that your swimming is really good. And you can adjust them obviously too. So if you start at a fitness level that's not where you want to be, or you've taken a break or whatever, you can adjust those. So you could do something like 8 1s, 3 2s, 1 4 in the first set. And then you could do 3 800s or 3 650s or whatever. And you just build your way up to that as being the top end of what you want to get to with those sessions.
That's a good tip because, you know, for some people, you know, talking about 3 1500s as a main set is just like, forget
Sure.
about it. It's not going to happen, you know. So you can certainly get the same effect from going 3 800s or whatever your level of ability is, then go 3 1Ks and then 315, build up to it
Sure.
that way. And that can be done progressively over a season or over a 6-week period or something like that, where you build up like that.
Absolutely. I mean, when I was in really good shape, I used to do that the first of those 2 sessions like once a week. I really found, even though it was boring and monotonous, like I actually enjoyed the challenge of it. Once you find that you are fit enough to do it, you get through a lot of swimming quickly. It goes by fairly fast, and I gained a lot of confidence from it.
Yeah, I think if you can get your mind around it, the repeatability of a session like that is gold. You know, where you can sort of, because it's so easy to track. 3 1500s like that, it's just so easy to repeat and track and get it done properly.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to the weaker swimmers then. That's a good transition point to sort of say, well, what
Sure.
tips? Let's say we've got. Let's classify our weaker swimmers as people swimming 35 minutes or slower for a 70.3 race. What tips would you give for some of those guys that are weaker swimmers around that?
Sure. So the first tip I would get is get comfortable in your wetsuit. So obviously, if you're a beginner or it's not something that you've practiced a lot, then swimming in a wetsuit is really different. Don't have the race as your first swim in it. Go out and learn where it's going to rub against you in the wrong way. It's going to give you a bit of rash here or there. Learn those points in your wetsuit so you can use some body glide or whatever Vaseline or whatever you want to use to make sure that you don't get it in the race. And just make sure that you're comfortable in it so that the nerves of race day and the people trying to kick you in the head and pull you underwater, you don't have the additional, I can't breathe in my wetsuit, or this wetsuit's really bugging me, to play with you as well. It's already daunting enough for you guys. So yeah, get comfortable in that, spend some time in it, get out in the open water before the race and make sure that you get comfortable with it. Secondly, I would say, and this is only for the beginner guys and not necessarily appropriate to the more advanced swimmers, but try to think about positioning yourself well at the start of the race. So if you're not a fast swimmer, there's no point trying to line you up with the shortest route to the can if there's going to be 30 people trying to drown you along the way and you're just trying to swim and get through the swim and finish it comfortably so that you can get onto the bike and run. Try to start, if there's a left-hand turn off the beach, try to start on the right-hand side of the start line so that even though you might be swimming 10 or 15 meters extra, you allow yourself the ability to relax and concentrate on just breathing through the swim instead of trying to fight for your life. Because if you get on the inside where the more advanced and aggressive swimmers are, you're going to end up vertical in the water. You're going to panic. You're going to end up holding onto a kayak, just trying to get yourself under control. So Start smart. Don't put yourself in a position to get swamped by everyone else. And then the last one would be, I would say for them, is to actually know the course. And I know a lot of people say that, and you don't have to know it perfectly, but have a good understanding in your mind of where the actual course goes. It's very different when you get out in the middle of a swim course and your eye level is at water level, that if the sun's in your eyes or something else is difficult to see, or there's a bit of wind and a bit of chop in the water, that if you don't actually know where the course goes and you can't find the next buoy and you're maybe not around a lot of people because your wave started later or whatever the reason is, if you don't actually know where the course goes, it can be quite daunting and you could spend more time out there than necessary. So,
I mean, look, I know that's a tip. And I know one of the things that you had mentioned to me was about warming up and that sort of thing. That just goes back to the importance of making sure that you get into your wetsuit early, you get out into the water and swim a good 300, 400, 500 meters. I know you wanted to talk about warming up and you'll get back to that later, but that gets back to that, knowing the course, even swimming. I think in a sprint race where you can, obviously in some of the Ironmans, they don't let you into the water, but 300-400 meters, it would be the minimum that you would do a warm up, and that allows you to then work out what the sun's doing, tidal influences, get comfortable in the suit, Get
Absolutely.
your breathing right, have a couple of technical thoughts that you're going to go, right, for the first 400, I'm just going to think about my head position or how I breathe, or one goggle in, one goggle out, or blowing bubbles, or arm position, or whatever it is.
Exactly. And you know, if you, like I said, if you position yourself in the wrong place and you've got all these people trying to drown you, all that goes out the window. So if you're not comfortable and at a more advanced level of swimming, then it's silly just to put yourself in that to try and save maybe 5 meters. If you're vertical in the water or resting on a kayak for a minute, like that's, you've actually wasted more time trying to take the shorter line than just putting yourself where you can just concentrate on those things and not have the people fighting you.
What sort of mileage would you recommend for a weaker swimmer? And obviously, we're going to work on the premise here that weaker swimmers want to become mid-pack swimmers.
Sure.
You know, so what sort of mileage weekly would you say for an adult onset swimmer? Let's say it's a 35-year-old male, been in the sport for 2 years. He's swum 36, 37 minutes for his last couple of 70.3s, and he wants to get to 31.
I would say minimum 10 and try and aim for around the 12.
Yeah, nice.
12 to 13 kilometers a week. I know that might sound a lot to someone that is that type of swimmer. Time-wise, it's not, though. If you look at the volume of time spent on a bike, it probably doesn't even make up one long ride of yours if you add that entire swimming time-wise for the week. So try to shift your mentality a little bit of, oh my gosh, that's so much swimming. If you look at it on time, it's actually not that much.
Yeah.
And that's not just as your biggest week. That's week in, week out. Try to reach for consistency of distance and amount of times in the water per week.
Yeah.
Over, okay, for 1 week I got 15, so I'm killing it. But then you have 3 weeks after that of 5, 3, and 7.
Yeah.
Like you try to get that consistency.
And I think also with that, if we said, I always say to my guys, 10 is your absolutely bare minimum. But if we sort of said 12, which I love, and we sort of say 4x3K as opposed to 3x4K, I think is also quite a good thing to do, just to keep that feel for the water more often, getting in more often. I often find with some of the weaker guys from that kilometre 3 to kilometre 4, it's generally, they're so flogged by that stage anyway.
Sure.
You might as well get out and go and go.
They don't have the swim fitness and technique's gone and you're just in survival mode. So if you're just trying to cram your weekly mileage into the minimum number of swims you can do in a week to get it over with, it's not really going to work for you. You want to, again, like you said, you want consistency and more regularity in the water is a good thing, even if they're shorter periods of time. 4 times 45 minutes in the water or an hour instead of 2 or 3 times an hour and 20 minutes or an hour 30. It's much better for your general swim fitness and feel for your water, as you said. That's really important. Unfortunately, in swimming, it disappears very quickly. So 2 to 3 days out of the water and it's gone. So try to get in more consistently. And I know that if you're someone that swims those sort of times, you probably don't enjoy swimming. So, try to find a way to where something small about swimming that you can learn to enjoy, to help encourage you to get in the water that more regularly, because you're happy to go and ride 6 hours on a weekend and smash yourself, but you don't want to do 45 minutes in the water because you hate it. So try to have that mental shift of like, okay, like I can definitely find the time, but I learned I need to find some way to enjoy it a little bit more.
Great. Okay, so let's then transition to our guys that are, and let's be honest, this is 80% of people right now. So let's transition to our 29 to 32 minute guys that are getting out with like the bulk of a 70.3 field.
Yeah, the first thing that I always tell those type of swimmers is you absolutely 100% have to have the ability to breathe left and right. There's no excuse you can give me that you don't need to do that. So during a race, yes, you're going to breathe to your favored side 95% of the time, but you need to have the ability to breathe the other direction for whatever reason. If it's siding, if it's someone is on your favorite side and bashing you in the face or kicking you in the face, or the sun's staring at you on that side until you turn the next buoy, you need to find the ability to breathe to the other side. And yeah, you might not feel as comfortable, or you might not swim as fast. But if you actually can't breathe that way, or you get dizzy, or you turn your head that way and you lose all bearing of where you're going, that's certainly going to cost you time in a race, because there's not a single race in the world where you are going to be able to breathe only to your favorite side and have it work out to your advantage. That's the first one. Secondly, I'd say, like you said earlier, this is where these guys absolutely have to have a swim warm up. It's so important. Be prepared. Get out in the water early, swim to the first buoy and look back to the beach. Find some sighting things that you can use to guide you in the water quicker. You're probably swimming around the 30-minute mark, and you are quite close then, especially in amateur racing, to being with some faster guys in the water. And if you can be smart about the way you swim and use intelligence to improve your swim time and not fitness and not extra hard training and not to more time in the water, then, surely you should do that. A lot of triathletes are intelligent people and they spend hours and hours in their careers making good choices and getting further ahead, but you come to a triathlon and you just kind of like, I don't like, the swim's okay, but I just want to get through it. Like, apply those principles to swimming as well. And you don't have to do anything. You don't have to train any harder. You don't have to do more mileage, and you're going to take a minute off your time. So learn that. It's free time, basically, if you just be smart about it. And then finally, start to learn to have the ability to draft in the water. So a caveat with this is absolutely not from when the gun goes. You want to go 200 to 300 in, just doing your own thing. And once the initial sprinting and people being maniacs off the start settles down, you're probably going to find yourself around swimmers of your ability or close to. But if you try to draft from the start, I mean, you could be next to a guy that's going to swim 24 minutes. And if you try to go with him for 2 minutes, you're going to blow yourself to pieces. Or you could start with someone that's going to swim 36 and they think they're a hero and go out sprinting like a maniac and then actually end up vertical in the water resting for a minute. Like, you don't know off the start who you're with. So find your own rhythm, get out the first 200 to 300, finding your pace, feeling strong, controlled in the water. But once you're around, or once you're past 3 to 5 minutes, look for some feed. Look for, if you find someone is of a similar ability, you try to save a little bit of energy by sitting on them. It's going to be 2 or 3 seconds difference out of the water, but you might have saved 5% of energy in the swim. So again, be smart about your decisions, know how to draft, find those feet. It is a skill. It takes time to learn how to do it. So practice that in your training, but learn the ability to start drafting in the water.
Nice. I like it. There's some great stuff there, mate. Okay, so that leaves our front pack guys, our guys that are getting out in, the first 3 or 4. This is their leg. This is what they dominate in. They want the clear water. What are we saying to those guys?
Yep. So these guys I expect a lot of. This is your thing. This is your leg. Let's capitalize the best we can and let it set up your race the best that it can, given that this is your strong leg. So first one is know your competition. I know that for you guys as amateurs, you don't really race the same people a lot, but Australia-wide, worldwide, wherever you're racing regularly, there's probably only 5, at most 10 swimmers who can swim with you. So know who they are, know what they look like, know their wetsuit brand, so that when your goggles in the water, you can tell, oh, that's such and such. I know who it is. Know how they, over time, try to learn how they race. How do they go off the start? Where do they like to be? You don't have to start next to them, but if you know where they are in the water off the line, okay, he was 15 meters to my left on the start. Once we get through all the sprinting and we're settled down, I know he's going to be to my left. And I'm assuming the top guys absolutely can breathe left and right. That's where you learn that at the medium level. But in the advanced, you know that even if the left isn't your favorite side, but you're the guy who's slightly faster than you, but if you got in his draft, you might be able to swim with you. He's going to be to your left. So be aware of that. Know who your competition is 100%. There's no excuse. There's not that many guys in your age group in your country that are going to be able to swim with you. So be smart about it. Know who they are. If you can't, I would also say start to learn some open water skills. If you're in the ocean, know how to body surf. You might be a great pool swimmer, but learn the ability to body surf. Learn the ability to get through the surf on the way out. Learn the ability to, get into a rip and feel comfortable and make sure that you're taking advantage of your leg to the best that you can. I guess for the fast guys, it's all about being smart and taking advantage of what you can in the limited time that you can, because the swim only makes up roughly 10%. So you've got a very small window to get as much benefit as you can from it. So just make really good decisions, know your competition, know everything you can about the guys you're racing. And then for those guys, especially the fast swimmers, during your warm-up, give yourself the best chance to maximize your benefits. So if you're in an ocean swim, know where the rips are. Use them as, even if you've got to run 15 meters off to the left at the start of a race to get into the rip, you're going to get ripped out in front of everyone else. And I know in Australia on the East Coast, a lot of people do it, but worldwide, they do not. People are scared of the word rip in the US. They associate it with an undertow or something that's going to drown you. So, learn those skills in the water to capitalize. And if you're a good swimmer, be confident and aggressive. Like, this is your leg. You know what you're doing. And I mean, I'm not necessarily suggesting to be a dick, but be aggressive and position yourself where you want to be. If you want to be if there's one really good swimmer and you want to be on his feet and some other good swimmer's fighting you, fight him. Like, make him, or push him out of the way, or reach over and grab his shoulder and make him get on your feet. Like, don't give in to, if there's 3 or 4 of you, make sure you know where you want to be and fight for that position. Don't fight to the point where you are going to hinder your ability, or you're going to get to the point where, it's going to be detrimental to your performance. But like, I'll give you a really good example of that. So when I was racing professionally, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, me and Matt Reed used to have a very similar swim ability. So I am 5'8", and Matt Reed is 6'7". So when we would swim next to each other, it's not very advantageous for me to fight him. I am going to get beat.
You're not going to win
badly.
that. You got nothing.
So unfortunately, if I find myself around him, which I did a lot, I would let him go in front of me and I would choose to sit on his feet. But if you're the bigger guy and there's some small guy trying to fight you, push him out of the way. Like, make sure that you know what you do. I mean, I have the ability to make some people uncomfortable in the water if I really want to, but if you have some advantage, or if you find yourself in a position to make sure that you get what you want from that swim, be aggressive. Like, if they're good swimmers, it's fair game at that level. Like, don't feel bad for them. They know what they're doing. They're a good swimmer. I think
there's a bit of look, because those top guys, they all know each other. I don't think there's as much aggression with those guys anyway, because they do they've been around each other so much, and they've been in so many of these scenarios anyway, that I think there's a certain, these guys aren't pros, right? They're not, if they get out of the water second or third.
I promise you it's not like that in the pros.
I'll bet it's not. But I think there's a certain sort of, I'll do a little bit of, I know with some of the guys I coach, they're not, there's no need for them to be particularly aggressive unless they're at a world championship. So sure, Kona, you're going to get a ton of these 55-minute swimmers all in together. That might be where, you get that sort of stuff. But there's there's a good understanding with those guys.
Sure, and I'm not, if I've come off and I've indicated that I want you to beat the crap out of someone in the water, then no, don't do that. But just be confident and assertive in what you want in the water.
Yeah, I think that's
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No punch-ups. No punch-ups. That'd be
no
great.
point. No, I've been water safety for punch-ups, and it's not fun. and you're not swimming any faster. You're swimming slower. So
yeah, it's slowing you down. It breaks your rhythm, definitely, throwing punches.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, that's basically it. If I'm happy to talk to anyone else about specifics with them and the things that they could help, or if they had a specific need or question with their abilities or where they are in the pack, I could definitely happy to help them. But if that would be just the generalized tips for those 3 categories.
I think that's great, mate. Look, it covers off everything. And I think there's even some of those tips that you've given for levels above. Like, so for example, those tips about being assertive and confident for those mid-pack guys. That's an excellent tip for some of those guys as well, because you get a lot of these guys that want to tick a box, right? So I have no problem getting my guys to go 12 to 15K a week, 45 weeks of the year. These guys will tick a box to make Training Peaks go green. They're A-type personalities.
Got to have a green box.
Got to have a green box. But then you get these guys in the open water and they're like, well, you know what? I'm super fit and I've got all this going for me and I'm off swimming 20 meters over here when I should be over there. Or the feet have gone from me because I was thinking about what I'm having for lunch or whatever. You know what I mean? So I think that assertive and that confidence in the open water is a huge thing for these guys.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned something there. So I would say one of the things that I'm fortunate that I have the ability to do, but is a great tip for anyone, is you need to remain in the moment or be aware.
Yeah, nice.
And think. I like to think and explain it like think 5 or 10 seconds ahead. Like don't be just, daydreaming, lunch will be nice later. Like think about that when you've finished your race. But, there's so much dead and free time, even in the water, if you're just paying attention and being aware of what's going on around you, that you don't need to be any fitter or train more. You just have to be more aware and a little bit more engaged and switched on, I guess, during the race to pay attention to little things. Okay, has someone started to kick a little bit more and they're making a surge? Like if you can obviously, if you look at it and pay attention, you can see there's more bubbles and the splashing is a little bit more aggressive. There's a little bit more chop coming off the person. But if you're not thinking, okay, there might be a change in that person's speed, I need to be aware or cognizant that I need to pick up the pace a little bit to stay on their feet. If you're not in the moment, by the time you realize they might be gone and then you've lost that thing. And again, you don't need to be any fitter. You just need to be paying a little bit more attention to what's going on around you in the water. And again, that comes back to learn the guy's wetsuits, learn what they are. Like, okay, I know he swims, learn how he swims. He might regularly surge halfway through a race. So if you know that and you're getting halfway near it, be aware and be prepared for that.
Yeah, nice. I like it. Well, look, that's pretty much all the questions I had. Have you got anything else that you wanted to add to that across any part of the conversation?
I had some just generalized tips that are very, very general, can be applied and anyone can do them. I prefer goggles strapped under the cap.
Yeah, great.
I think it's a really easy thing. It feels slightly different to start with, but once you get used to it, it's no different. And you cannot have your goggles knocked off if your strap's under your thing. You might have the actual goggle itself be knocked, but with the strap under the cap, it'll still be there and you can reposition it and go on with your swim. Whereas if it's over the top, you can actually lose them totally. And then if you're not prepared for that, or the salt stings your eyes or whatever, you're going to have a horrible swim.
Yeah.
So it's a really minor thing.
You know what? And to that point as well, something that I do quite a lot with the open water guys, when we have those sort of swims in seasons, is do some of your swim without goggles.
Yeah.
So that it's not one of those things that, like, if someone knocks your goggles off or whatever, sure, it's not ideal. Sure, you're going to be like, struggling a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. It's not even something you would even break your rhythm or your stroke for. It's just something that you can navigate, you can follow feet, you can do whatever without goggles on quite easily. And a lot of these top surf swimmers and top ocean swimmers do the swim without any goggles, no problem at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes years of practice. And if you can do it, then more power to you. I know that I can't do it, even though that I've grown up. I have the ability to still get by, but I find it uncomfortable as well. I don't like it. My eyes start to sting after 300, 400, 500 meters. I start to have more difficulty trying to find stuff. So I think the strap under the cap is just a way to solve it.
Yeah.
And there's no more issue. I mean, yeah, you may lose your cap halfway through a race, but by the time you're going to lose your cap, everything's settled down. You're not going to be getting kicked in the face as much. Like by that time, it's calm. And so if you lose your cap, your goggles are still going to stay on after that point.
Yeah, nice.
Another super easy thing is triathlon is so expensive, so have a spare pair of goggles. Like, it's cliche and people say it all the time, but it's such an easy thing and cheap thing to have in your thing. But if you get to the race and for whatever reason a goggle lens cracks, a strap breaks, whatever, it's going to throw you off. And to have a spare pair of goggles, $25 in your bag, it's a simple fix. So make sure that they're not in a packet. You've worn them at least once. But just having spare goggles is a really important thing. Learn your pacing in the pool. I don't care if you've started swimming a month ago or if you've swum for 30 years. If someone asks you in a conversation, "Oh, what do you swim per 100?" Like, you should know an answer. You shouldn't just be like, I don't know, I just swim. Like, actually know your pacing. And once the way to improve is through knowledge, and then until you learn that pacing, how do you even know that you're improving? So don't just be blasé, like, oh, I don't know, I just swim. Like, get in the pool, learn your pace per 100, and be able to have a conversation with someone about it like that if they're actually asking you.
And ideally, the other thing I'll just add as a pet hate of mine, learn to read a clock. Just learn to read a swim clock. At the amount of times I got guys coming in going, dum, dum, oh
Yeah,
man,
so I don't even swim with a watch.
Yeah.
I swim purely off the clock, and I know that your watch is not going to upload to Training Peaks how far you've swum, but if you actually know what's going on, you know that you swam 4,500, or if you did the set, your coach is going to trust you enough to type into Training Peaks, okay, I did 4,500.
Yeah.
You don't need a watch to upload it.
Totally.
But yeah, like, I mean, it might be a little bit harsh, and I don't mean to offend people if they can't read the clock, but a 5-year-old can read it at swim lessons when they're 5. So triathlon is full of extremely intelligent A-type personalities that make a shit ton of money. Like, you're smart enough to read a clock.
I like that. I like that, dude. That's the way to call them out. That's right. I've coached some incredibly intelligent people that are just it's just laziness the way I see it. It's not
you're relying on your watch, and you've gotten comfortable with that. And if you actually make a concerted effort to learn, it will take you 2 weeks.
Particularly when you think right across 3 lanes, your fast lane's going to be 130 pace, your medium lane's going to be 145 pace, and your slow lane's going to be 2-minute pace. Those 3 time repeats are so easy to read a clock on.
Yeah, what you're actually swimming may vary 5 seconds 100. It's not like, oh, am I swimming 4 minutes 30 100 or 55 seconds 100? Like, no, it's like in a very small band of time that you actually have to learn.
Totally. Oh, that's okay. I'm glad we got that off our chest. That's my rant for the chat. That's good.
All right, good. And then my last tip is, don't be afraid to fail in training. You're not failing in training. You're getting fitter, you're getting closer to succeeding in that session. There's no penalty if you don't make the time repeat, but set time repeats and do sessions that you technically fail. Like, it's not, even if you miss it by 1 or 2 seconds, it'll inspire you or push you to come back and do it again, and eventually you will make it and get to a fast thing. I fail 25% of my swims. Like, there's maybe 1 a week, maybe 2 a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, but it's a common event that I fail my swim times. I
was going to say, you are such a loser like that. It's just,
I know, and I'm quite okay with that, because then when it gets to a race, I'm not failing. But
it gets back to that mental strength, and it also gets back to knowing you 100 times. You fail, let's say once a week, you're setting, time repeats where they're not unrealistic. Like, if you're a 140 swimmer, you're getting out of the water in, say, 31 minutes, you don't go, oh, I'm going to have a crack at 10 100s on 130. It's not going to happen.
No.
But
you set something that's just unattainable.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how you attain it.
Yeah, and that maybe 8 you fail. Like, you couldn't hold it 8, 9, and 10, and then you do it again the next week, and you might make 9. And eventually you'll make 10, and then you adjusted it down again. But the I guess stigma or dissatisfaction of people that fail sessions really baffles me in training, because there's no medals. No one actually knows. Like, who cares? Like, it's training, and this is where we are practicing to get better. So let's push to that next level, and it's going to take time. And unless you fail, you're not going to get to that next level.
I love it. All right, dude. Well, look, what I'm going to do, I'm going to wrap this up, because I wanted to kind of keep it condensed, and there's so much good stuff there. So what I'm going to do is I'll load this up, and then people can ask you some questions, and then you can jump in later on and just answer anything as you've got time to do. But mate,
and even if you want to set up a time on Zoom or whatever where people have specific questions, I can jump on and answer. That's fine.
I love that, mate. Thank you so much for giving up some of your time, and I
Pleasure.
have recorded this, so that's perfect. And I'll catch up with you in the next couple of days. We'll chat some more.
Take it easy, guys.
See you, mate. Cheers.